Zoom, I'd like to welcome any new members or anyone that's been with us on Zoom for the first time. If we're at Moorabbin, we could welcome you formally, but we're not at Moorabbin, so So our agenda tonight is that we're going to have our guest speaker, Anuja Baker. Then following Anuja, we'll have a short break of a few minutes where you can talk amongst yourselves. Following the break, we'll have our esteemed president, David Stoney Gibson, give his series report, followed by Greg Eden with a presentation on our new social media platform, Google Spaces. Following that will be Harry Lewis with iHelp, and at the conclusion of the official part of the evening, we'll leave Zoom open for any special social chit-chat, and you'll have a bit of social chit-chat in the middle of the thing. Because we're on Zoom, I don't know how it handles on anything but a Windows machine, because that's all I've got and that's all I've ever used. But Anuja's quite happy to take questions during her presentation. And so if you just raise your hand, you pick the icon at the bottom right hand, raise your hand, you go to the front of the queue and Anuja should see that, or I'll see it and let you on. After you've asked your question, remove your hand, otherwise we'll think you have another question. So our guest this month is Anuja Baker, a solicitor in Bentleigh who specialises in family matters, including estate planning. Tonight she's accepted an invitation to come and share some important insights into the estate planning process. Anuja was born in Fiji and came to Australia as an international student in 1992 on a scholarship. She completed her Bachelor of Laws at Queensland University of Technology in 1996 and her Graduate Diploma in Legal Practice from Australian National University in 1997. Good heavens, that's the year I got flung from the job. She practiced in various legal roles in government, private practice and in-house before starting her own practice as a sole practitioner in January 2009. Anuja started her own practice specifically to give clients a different experience of receiving quality and professional legal services, an environment where they felt comfortable and safe, all about providing instructions relating to children, property and family law matters and matters relating to their estate. Anuja is a member of the Law Institute of Victoria and the Law Council of Australia's Family Law section. So, welcome Anuja, and over to you.
Thank you, Peter, and hi Anuja. I'll lead off if I may, Anuja. I'd just like to give you all 78 of you. That's a record.
Wow, that's a lot of people listening in.
Now you've got a bit of an audience here, so yeah.
Thank you all. And it's very cold today, so I really appreciate all of you joining us. Like I said to David, I'm not a person that has ever done a PowerPoint presentation, so please don't expect a PowerPoint presentation from me. I don't even know how to create one. If you asked me, I would have to ask my 16-year-old son to teach me. So do not expect a PowerPoint. I'm actually the old school type of person that answers questions, probably just is better. Like I would have loved to have been in person in front of you. I think you said you meet in Moorabbin, and that would have been the perfect place, for me to be presenting. But Zoom will do today, and I'm happy to answer questions like Peter did indicate. So yeah, I look forward to it.
Okay, here we go. Now, I'm just going to lead off, sorry, pardon me, with a little bit of background. My wife and I have been doing our wills and checking out or revising our wills every 7, 8, 9 years since the turn of the century, I think, maybe a bit before, through 2 or 3 different solicitors. Recently, we decided it was probably about time we're beginning to feel our bones a little bit more, I suppose. And we're planning a big trip to Europe in a few months' time. So we decided to give it another go. And my existing solicitor, or our existing solicitor, had long since retired, and made off over the horizon. So first of all, Judy went and saw a solicitor who was related to a friend of a friend, and this lady did the will. And when we actually looked over it, or no, actually what happened was I decided to sort of go and find my own separate solicitor, and I just Googled around and I found this lady in Bentleigh who had a very nice looking website and was specializing in family type stuff, which is fairly important. I think that the solicitor has got the right particular specialist skills. And so we both went and saw her, and she immediately mentioned issues that were just not even come up with the solicitor Judy had seen just weeks earlier. And so it was very clear that she knew her stuff, and asked all sorts of, I would say, challenging questions. And so we decided to go with Anuja, and we're happy we did. We're just in the final throes of kind of finalising some of the dotting some I's and crossing some T's in the other documentation, which we also get to during the evening. And the lady certainly knows her stuff, that's for sure. And so that's the disclosure statement, shall we say. Other than that, so I thought, well, hey, we've got a lot of people in the club who are in a similar kind of demographic, shall we say, as Judy and I. So we'll spread a bit of the goodness. And 78 people in the meeting says that there are, in fact, a lot of people who are interested in this sort of stuff, and quite rightly so. It is important that you prepare for your eventual demise. It's going to happen to us all. We have a few people in the club that I know where that has not been done beforehand, and one particular member I know has had a 3-year ongoing battle with his family, into court, out of court, goodness knows what not, because a particular family member died without having properly taken care of these things. And it's a horrible mess. It has literally dominated his life, the poor guy's life, for the last several, and his wife for the last several years. So it can be quite horrific. And I'm going to guess, and you can nod or shake your head, Anuja, even if it doesn't get to that stage, it's going to take a lot longer to get settled if you haven't prepared the ground beforehand. Yeah. Not to mention that if you really want it all to go to the old dog's home, then you've got to have that properly certified as well, and that may or may not work.
We've got a question here from Viv Alliston.
Oh, wow, okay, good.
Thanks, thanks, Anuja. Anuja, would you like to comment on the relationship between superannuation benefits and wills? I understand that a superannuation benefit generally is not included in a will.
That's correct, Viv. Can I call you Viv?
Yes, please.
Yes. So superannuation is what we call a non-estate asset. Okay, so when I'm looking at estate planning for a client, I'm straight away educating the clients about what assets form part of a will and what assets don't form part of a will. And so superannuation is actually a non-estate asset. So it's governed by the superannuation rules, and it does not form part of the will. Okay, so basically when a person comes to me and they have got superannuation, the first question I do ask them is, do they have a binding nomination form in place? And that form, provided it is a validly executed form, and it's still valid as of the date of death, will be the form that will dictate what happens to the death proceeds.
Okay, and I also understand that superannuation assets can only be left to certain individuals or directed towards your estate. So I guess it's important that it is directed towards your estate if you have no one else to leave it to, no one else that you can legally leave it to.
Yes, you're 100% correct there, Viv. superannuation is very limited in terms of who the beneficiaries are. They either are your child, your spouse, or someone who is in a financial interdependent relationship. Okay, so you have to satisfy the criteria of the super fund, who will list the definition of beneficiary as part of their rules, and it should actually be part of the binding nomination form. It should actually have the definitions for who a beneficiary of a binding of the death benefits can be, and there should always be a default position, because in the event you didn't have a child, you didn't have a spouse at the time of your death, you should be able to direct all the death benefits to your estate. And by ticking the box, if they have a box, but if you don't have a box, you create that alternate position, which is that it goes to your legal personal representative of your estate.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is something I've just been doing this afternoon with a bit of creative editing of PDF files, both for myself and for Judy. To get that
We've got questions from Peter. Yep.
I've got a couple, actually. I've got a valid will and I wish to change the executor. Do I need a new will, or can I do something that changes the executor?
Okay, no, I would say to you, Peter, that is a fundamental change. Okay, what a change of an executor is a fundamental change to the will. Now, there's a document called a codicil. Okay, a codicil is a document that can formalize any changes to the will. That's what it basically is. I have not drawn a codicil for a very long time. Okay. I don't like it for many reasons. I don't like disagreements about when it was drawn, whether it was validly executed. I don't want more problems for the estate. So I prefer to essentially draw a new will for a client when there is a change of an executor. And in fact, I did that just last Friday. I saw clients who I had seen 10 years ago, 2002, not 2002, 2009. I had seen them last in 2009. And when I saw them again last week on Friday, they came to me for two reasons. One, they wanted to change the executor. And in discussions, of course, we worked out that when their first will had been drawn, their child had been a minor at that point in time. Okay, so now 10 years on, their child was an adult and someone that they could appoint as a power of attorney. So one thing led to the other. We made the child an alternative executor, and the child is now also going to be the powers of attorney and have prominent roles to play for both medical, financial, and personal matters for their parents. So, in short, Peter, if what I would recommend to you, if you came to me, is that we do a new will.
On the executor side, I've nominated Bill Smith as my executor, but if he's unable to be my executor, I nominate Sam Smith or something. Is that a good system in case, I fall off the perch and my executor's overseas and can't get home because of the virus?
Absolutely. I make it a fundamental principle whenever I'm taking instructions from clients that there must be alternative positions, because you can't put all eggs in one basket. Yeah, your executor may predecease you or may just be unwilling and unable to act for you as an executor. Then what? Okay, so you need to have an alternative position and an alternative person who you trust and you think would be happy to take on the role as an executor. Yeah.
I've got a will that was made out by a legal firm in Melbourne, and I've decided I'm going to be like a lot of Southerners, move up north because it's too cold down here. I fall off the perch up there. Is my will valid in another state?
So where was your will drafted?
In Victoria.
And
I've moved to Queensland, and that's where I pass away.
That's completely fine. So basically, when we are getting the grant of probate, the grant of probate is obtained in the jurisdiction where the assets are located. Okay, so if the assets are located predominantly in the estate of Victoria, that's where the grant of probate will need to be obtained. But it's completely fine. As long as you've left a valid will as of the date of your death, that's the more important thing in your matter, I'd say, Peter. Yeah.
Thank you.
Frank? How are you, Frank?
Oh, hi. Terrific that you're available today. I've got a question I've been thinking about for a while. I have 2 children, and between them they have 7 children. If I had a sum of money, and they haven't bought a house yet, neither of them. If I had a sum of money, a few $100,000 perhaps, that I fundamentally wanted to go towards the grandchildren.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, if I wanted to put some money aside for the grandchildren's education, but in the meantime, thought maybe it'd be helpful to put it into the house and then ask their parents to put it back into a fund for the children. So what I'm interested in is there a simple legal structure that the money could be put into a house for each family with an agreement, not necessarily absolutely legally binding, that they would then put it back into a sinking fund for the children, and the other goal would be to protect the money in the event of a marriage breakdown.
Well, I think what you're looking at here is a testamentary trust, and testamentary trusts are not simple. Is going to be my answer to that. Yeah, testamentary trusts are essentially a short way of describing what a trust is. A testamentary trust is it's a trust within a will. Okay, have you heard of discretionary trusts?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a trust that exists on its own. Okay, but a testamentary trust is a trust that is contained within your will. Okay, and therefore it gets called a testamentary trust.
Okay, I would want this to begin before my death, immediately.
Oh, then that's not a testamentary trust. Then you're talking about not estate planning, you're talking about discretionary trusts. And I don't do discretionary trusts. I do testamentary trusts. I do estate planning, which is so I'm happy to direct you, Frank, to other people that can assist you in that. But if you want a trust that can start straight away, you're looking at you're not, well, I'm not the person to speak to, pretty much, but I'm happy to direct you to someone that can help you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I've got 2 other questions, I think, in chat.
Okay, I was just about to read them out. Are you happy to read them?
I'm happy to read that, yes. So I've got John Goldman. What if your solicitor is overseas or dies unexpectedly when you die? I presume your solicitor in this instance is holding your will, and that's why you are worried. Because I would hope that you have access to your, okay, the answer is yes. Well, you'll have to obviously contact the solicitor. I'm pretty sure that the solicitor would have some way of having you go to their office and take your will. But if your solicitor dies unexpectedly when you die, okay, so that will be a problem if your solicitor is your executor. Yeah, okay, but if your solicitor dies and they're just merely holding your will, well, you'll just have to engage another solicitor, and they will obviously write to your first solicitor and get the original will on your signed written authority. Does that answer your question, John? I'm not sure, but I'm sure he'll come back to me. Oh, yes, he says yes. Okay, and now there's a question from Stephen. I have HEX fees existing from some qualifications. I'm 74, putting aside paying off debts when exceed certain income upon death, does the government reclaim outstanding amount from deceased estates? Well, it just depends if you've signed an agreement whereby the debts are payable from your estate as well, and most debts are. Okay, you'll have to obviously check your particular HEX fees and the rules concerning them, but most debts, when documentation is prepared for loan agreements, for instance, there's a clause in most loan agreements that in the event of death, this amount is recoverable from your estate. What that means is that if the person passes away, then the estate has to say, as part of their inventory for assets and liabilities, that there's a debt owing to John Smith. Okay, so that would then be recoverable from the estate. But I can't answer the question, Stephen, in particular about HEX, because you'll have to contact them directly. Yeah, hopefully that helps. Okay, David. David, you've got a question.
Yeah, I put my hand up, Anuja, because of sort of the tail end really of Steph's question there. That so in general, if I die and I'm owing, I imagine the bank can take care of themselves, but I'm owing a private person a substantial amount of money. Can they collect that from my estate if there's no agreement that does so stipulate?
Well, it has to be a secured secured debt. Okay, like the same thing if it's a secured debt or an unsecured debt. And if it's a secured debt, then there'll often be clauses in that loan agreement that says that if it's a company, the directors are, for instance, personally responsible for the debt, and that it will follow on through their estate. Okay, so if you've got clauses like that, then it's a secured debt, and one can basically put a claim on the estate for it. So yeah, it just depends. But if you don't have any loan agreement, if you don't have any, if you have got no documentation, then it will be obviously falling onto the executor of the will to see if all the documentation properly exists to ensure that this is a proper debt of the deceased. So it will actually fall upon the executor to make due diligent inquiries about the nature of the transaction and see that it's a properly formalized debt. Then of course it should be paid out of the estate.
Yeah, look, certainly I imagine that all the institutional lenders like the banks and whatnot would have that in their agreements, and you don't even notice it when you sign it because it's there. But supposing my local bookie holds $50,000 of IOUs from me, I mean, that less formal sort of situation.
Less formal situations will make it quite difficult for the executor. That's just think about it in terms of what happens in the event of death and how you leave your estate, pretty much. I mean, that's why we do estate planning. We try and make things easy for our loved ones. We want to make sure that we have got documents kept in an orderly fashion. And if you're going to have a debt there, you put details of that debt in that folder of important documents. So when death does occur, then your executor is going to be asked the one fundamental question by their solicitor. What did the deceased have in terms of assets and liabilities when they passed away? Okay, so that's the question that they'll be asked. So your executor has to find this information. And where do they find this information? Well, if you've lived in an orderly manner and you've left your estate in an orderly manner, then they'll know exactly where to find that folder containing all your bank statements, all your information about any shares, all details about real estate that you own. They'll be able to find all of that information. And I would hope that containing within that folder would be a folder with all your debts, information about your debts as well. So that's where your executor will find that information. Now, does that answer the question, David?
Well, I don't know that I'd be keeping copies of my IOUs to Dodgy Joe down the road. And short of him threatening to break some legs of the executor, does he have a legal legs to stand on?
Well, again, that's going to be a question. I mean, if you've not resolved those issues prior to your death, then he will obviously try and make a claim on your estate. Yeah. And then your executor will have to deal with that problem. Okay.
But
so
this could well be related to those IOUs.
Well, look, remember, I mean, so why do we do a will? To obviously make sure that we give our estate to whoever we want to give it to. And if you have a debt, then I would say that you take into account what happens to that debt in your will. Okay, so sometimes you are owed money or you owe monies to others. Now, if you are going to be giving, you know, a gift to a child who, for instance, owes you money, you have to make mention that their share of the estate has to be reduced in accordance with the amount that they owe the deceased person. So, you know, just have to dot your I's and cross your T's. Viv?
Thanks again, Anuja. Just a question on executors. If an executor, if there was only one executor and only one person that you felt was suitable to be an executor, and it turned out that they had lost capacity at the time of your death, does that completely invalidate the will, or is it just a case of someone finding a suitable executor?
Well, the incapacitated executor won't be able to act in the position of an executor. Okay, so I would recommend in that scenario to appoint another executor. You have to, okay? You have to appoint another executor.
Yeah, let's just assume that that I'm not aware that the other executor can't act, and it's sort of too late. In that situation, does the will become invalid, completely invalid, or is it just...
No. So in this instance, are you saying that both executors can't act
If there was only one executor and say he'd lost mental capacity,
then you'll have to make an application. So the next of kin will have to make an application to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
okay.
remember, whilst we have capacity, I will encourage everyone to look at their wills, and if they haven't done their wills, do their wills. And remember, you can always appoint, and this is a common question that I get asked. You know, I have difficulty. I'll have clients that will say, look, I'm either the only child, or I have got family members, but I don't trust anyone. Or I have family members, but I don't consider that they will be the right choices in terms of executor, because I don't think it's an onerous role. There's a lot of things that an executor needs to be doing. And a lot of clients will come to me and say, look, I can't think of anyone that I can trust to actually be appointed as an executor. So just remember that professionals can also be appointed in a will to be a person's executor. But they're quite strict rules about how these professionals can be appointed. So, for instance, in Victoria, if a solicitor is to be appointed as an executor, they have to put it in writing to the will maker. They have to advise the terms of their engagement. They have to advise that they will be charging a commission, okay? And the commission is in accordance with the industry standards, which is about 3% of the gross value of the estate, okay? And they have to also advise the will maker that they have other choices of persons who don't necessarily charge a commission. Okay, so they have got to put this in writing. So you can't just a note to anyone who has got a solicitor appointed as an executor, they must have given you a document in writing confirming the terms of their agreement, and very importantly, that they will be charging a commission. Okay, but yes, like to answer your question, Viv, I would definitely, get people that have capacity to look at their wills, update their wills, and if they have doubts about who to appoint in terms of an executor, think about appointing a professional such as a solicitor or an accountant as an executor to their wills. Okay.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Stuart?
Yes, thank you, Anuja. What do you do in the case of where people have Facebook accounts, Google accounts, all manner of electronic accounts these days? And how can a person write into the will to pass on the relevant authority for those particular accounts? Do you deal with that very often?
Yes, in fact, I have a discussion about that with every will client, Stuart. That's the world that we live in, the digital estate, the digital accounts that everyone has, Facebook, Gmail, Twitter, lots more. And what happens to them? Okay, so obviously some of them you can close down, but I know that there are many accounts that you just simply cannot close. They exist forever. So, so sometimes the account holders are allowed to actually put in information on the page to say that the person has passed away, and they can basically make that note on the system. But the best way to deal with digital accounts is to do that in the form of a document called statement of wishes. That's how I deal with it. I do not put that in the will itself, because remember, the will gets sent to the probate's office, and it's a document that gets held. The original will gets held by the probate office in Victoria. So I don't want people to have, and there are many people that will see that will, okay, and it's a document that is actually accessible once you pay a fee. So once the probate process starts, it becomes, in my view, a public document. And if it contains passwords and usernames, which are obviously which are highly confidential information, I would not want that falling into the hands of the wrong person. So what I recommend to clients when we are doing estate planning is to prepare a document called Statement of Wishes. Now, a Statement of Wishes is simply a document that says, and I encourage my clients to do this themselves, and I say to them that this is a document that you are going to prepare for the benefit of your executor. It's not a binding document. It's essentially non-binding. Will is a binding document. Statement of Wishes is not a binding document. It's just a document to assist the executor, and that's where you will put down details of all your digital accounts and your specific instructions in relation to each of those. So I think what will really help the executor is if you just put down the username and the passwords, so that they can access those accounts and then deal with them accordingly. Okay, whatever the policies of those digital accounts allow them to do. What I also say to my clients is that that when we have completed the estate planning process and they've prepared that statement of wishes, to give that to me in a sealed envelope. Okay, and I hold that together with the original will. Okay, so when death occurs, I won't be opening that sealed envelope. It is for the benefit of the executor. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Okay.
Anuja, could I just butt in? Just wondering if Bernard Starn has his hand up physically rather than using the signal. Do you want to ask a question, Bernard? Turn your mic on, Bernard. Bernard, you're muted.
My mic is now on, and I'd like to ask a question. I've been acting as an executor in the past, and that wasn't all that difficult because it was there was a lot of agreement amongst family members. I've been using the Fitzroy edited or Fitzroy edited Victorian law book, and that was quite helpful. Now, I've put in my will, I put a person who is a bit hesitant to be actually executor. And so I might have to appoint a solicitor or the trustee office. And when I looked this up in the law book, Victorian law book, I found that they said, well, they may collect something like 10% of the estate. Now, a lot of us these days who live in inner suburbs have quite expensive real estate that might be $1 million, $2 million. The will to execute this would be relatively simple, yet 10% of $1.5 million in real estate, that is a large amount of money. And I just wonder whether the trustees would actually be entitled to ask for that much money.
I can assure you, Bernard, that if it is the state trustees, they will get each and every dollar of their entitlement. And now I'm not going to say any more after that, but I'll say one more thing. I'm very pleased to see not many wills that have those appointments. Okay, so just Bernard, I would strongly suggest to you to consider sitting down with a solicitor and working it out. What will be the terms of the engagement? Okay, because what most solicitors, well, I can tell you how I charge. If I'm going to charge as an executor, I charge on the hourly rate, and I will essentially, my terms of engagement will not be the 3% or the industry, whatever the industry standard is, because remember, it will be the industry standard whenever death occurs. Okay, commission. So yes, the answer is, solicitors are entitled to charge a commission, and that's in accordance with the Act. And I'm not sure how much state trustees put in their paperwork, but they are not cheap. So what I would recommend is that if you are thinking about appointing a solicitor as an executor, you must get paperwork from them which explains in very clear terms what the basis of their engagement is and how they're proposing to charge in terms of being an executor.
Thank you very much for that.
Welcome. Peter, how can I help?
But there are some questions in chat earlier, if you could look at.
Okay. Yes. So where did I leave it? How does a married couple with no children with most of their assets in super each achieve their objectives to distribute their respective assets to their respective siblings, nephews, and nieces? It will have to go through the legal personal representative in your estate, okay? Because if the married couple do not have a child, like you've said, because remember, superannuation can only be gifted to certain beneficiaries, and that often is someone who is your spouse, ex-partner, or child, or someone who is in a financially interdependent relationship. So if they don't form part of that definition, then the best way to give to any of the persons, like for instance nephews and nieces, it would be to do it in accordance with your will. So make sure you tick the box that says 100% of the death proceeds to go to the legal personal representative of my estate. Okay, I have already answered the question. Can a state trustee be removed within a new will? Absolutely. Just appoint somebody else. Remember, every time you do a new will, it revokes any previous wills. And obviously the new will with the new appointment for executor will count. What's the best course of action if you want to omit a person from inheriting, but want their person's children to inherit when they are adults? If you want to omit a person from inheriting, psychologically unstable and unable to manage, through a testamentary trust. So like I had mentioned before, a testamentary trust is really designed for problem matters or complex wills, or really for tax advantages. So if I have a spendthrift child, if a parent comes to me and says that, look, I've got a child just doesn't know how to manage money, is not good at managing money, or I have a child with psychological issues, then I will suggest definitely a testamentary trust. And how that works is that you essentially will be appointing a trustee who is different to the spendthrift child, okay, or the disabled child, or the child that's essentially not good with managing their affairs. So you'd appoint a different person to manage the portion that would have been given straight out to that disadvantage, to that particular child, and that trustee will manage the affairs for the person. So it's the best course of action is testamentary trust. While there are no checks and balances to ensure executives carry out the requirements of a will correctly, well, the checks and balances are essentially your beneficiaries, because the beneficiaries will be able to see what the contents of a will are. They're obviously the beneficiaries, so they're entitled to a copy of the will. And if the will obviously says that half of that is to be given to the beneficiaries and half to a particular charity, if that doesn't happen, then they have got obvious causes of action that they can take. Remember, an executor has to account to the beneficiaries on a regular basis, do interim distributions, advise the beneficiaries how the estate is going, when it's going to be distributed, what's happening, pretty much keep them abreast of what's happening. So I would say that the beneficiaries have to obviously keep a tab on the executors. The executors also have a duty to provide an audit of their books of the deceased estate to the Supreme Court, and they can be audited there as well, but that is quite random. ABC Four Corners, March 14th, exposed state trustees. Okay, that's good. Maybe everyone should read that. Is there a registry for wills? I know that in the Supreme Court probate office, you can register, you can put your wills, you can register your wills, but it's sort of not the common practice in Victoria. It's not many wills are registered with the probate office in Victoria. It's very common instead for parties, for will makers, I will say, to leave their wills with their solicitors in safe custody. Okay. Yes, Peter, how can I help? You're on mute, Peter.
Unmuted. Good, thanks, Anuja. Given who we are, I'm wondering if computer technology can help us. There's a business in the States, I expect, called Dead Man's Switch, which is an old railway term. Have you heard of it at all?
Nope.
No. I've just put the link in chat. And the idea is that you can leave statements of what your intentions are. And I believe there's something in Facebook called memorials or something like that.
Yes.
Have you come across these at all?
Yes, I have come across memorials, and I think that's sort of the, well, it's the current way of people saying goodbye to a loved one on a digital space. So memorials, I know, can be done on, and I know that there are businesses out there that will offer these sort of memorials and get people together and yeah, look, I am aware of that, but obviously I haven't, I don't look into that area. It's really up to the, you know, particular, that's really quite personal to the person as to whether they partake in any of this thing. I have heard of it though, yes.
Okay.
Okay. George, how can I help you?
If I have an enduring power of attorney, will that simplify my will?
No, those are very different subjects there, and they're totally okay. So let me say this to you, George. A power of attorney is completely different to a will. Okay, so power of attorney is essentially a document that allows you to appoint someone to make decisions for you whilst you're still alive. Okay, but incapacitated. So alive but incapacitated. Okay, and a will, on the other hand, is a document that kicks in essentially when you have passed away. Okay, so an enduring power of attorney can only help you as long as you're still alive.
Okay, thank you. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael?
Hi, Anuja. I had a friend passed away about just over 12 months ago, having not left a will. 3 or 4 days before he passed away, he told his boss that he was on his way out. He had cancer. And he told his boss said, "What are you going to do with your super and everything else?" And he said, "I'm going to give it all to my goddaughter." But he didn't have a will. He had a long lost sister, it turns out, that was the beneficiary. But the father of the godchild was wondering at the time whether he had any right to appeal to the federal court or wherever you go to try and get that benefit for his daughter.
Okay. I'm sure there's more to it. I would hope that there was more to it, Michael, in terms of making a claim. Well, we don't even have a will. We have a case of intestacy here. Okay, so intestacy is the situation that arises when a person passes away without making a will. If that person had in fact put it in writing somewhere, that's what his intention was, and even if it wasn't validly executed in the front of 2 valid witnesses, I would have had more confidence in assisting him. But if it was just a verbal comment, yeah, if it was just a verbal
comment. Was a verbal comment, and it was in front of it was to his boss, but there was someone else there. Yes,
but it wasn't formalized. I mean, you don't know whether the person had the full intention to obviously formalize that verbal comment. And I would say that he would struggle with making a claim against the person that was entitled in accordance with the rules of intestacy. I think, and plus if it's been more than a year since death, and if you know, letters of administration have already been granted, then it will be pretty hard to go back, and you're kind of out of time as well, because you've got 6 months from the date of grant of probate or grant of letters of administration to contest it. Okay, so that's going to be also another problem.
Yeah. The father did look into it, but it proved too difficult.
Look, it just depends on what we have by way of factual information. I can share with you a recent case that we did last year, and it was a case of a person who was diagnosed with cancer earlier last year, in around January. That person actually passed away in April, and he wanted to change his will, and so he wrote out a new will and he signed it, but and then he passed away. And so when I was asked to obtain probate, what I discovered as part of the process was that the two witnesses that signed the will actually did it not in the presence of the will maker. So what that means is the deceased person simply signed the will, and the two witnesses who signed the will, they actually signed it subsequently and not in his presence. Now, the rules for a will are that you must do it in the presence of two witnesses, okay? And that those two witnesses must attest their signature to the will at the same time, or everything must happen all at the same time. So we were quite successful in that matter, though, in terms of admitting that will in probate. And the reason for that was because we had so much information and evidence in that matter that the will maker really wanted to, give his estate in the manner that he wanted to in his last will, like the one that he did just before he passed away. Like he had told his sisters, he had told his, he was actually separated. He told his ex-wife, he got his children together. He was very clear about the way he wanted his estate to be distributed. Okay, so there was abundant information, and plus also we had consents from the people that were missing out on any gift that they would have received had this last will not been admitted. So that's getting a bit complicated, but basically we had lots of factual information, okay? But it had to be an application to the Supreme Court, and we eventually got what we wanted, but we were lucky in the sense that there was so much factual information to back us up. That doesn't always happen, okay? David, hello.
Oh, yes. Oh, you sort of looked away as you addressed me. Hi. In a situation where you have a married couple and one is the owner of the house, what are the best ways of providing for somewhere to live for the other partner if they survive the owner of the house?
Okay, so this is a very common scenario that I get quite often. And that's the scenario where it could be a blended family. And when I'm talking about a blended family, it could be a person that has entered into a second relationship, and they may be living with their partner who happens to have a house. Okay, so picture this scenario: you living with your partner. The partner owns the house. Okay, so in that scenario, what I always discuss with clients is the ability to live in the house, and on what grounds. Can it be for life, or can it be for, can it just simply be a right to reside based on a number of conditions? And that often opens up all sorts of questions with my clients, because they have to go home and discuss it between themselves, because not one scenario is right for everyone, because in a particular scenario, they might want to only give the person a right to the right to reside for a short period of time, but then they want the estate to be sold, the house to be sold, and all the proceeds to be given to their children of their first marriage. So it really just depends on what is the right thing to do for a particular couple. But we do discuss concepts such as life estates and the rights to reside. Great. I've been talking a lot, I think. All right, Greg, how can I help?
Under what circumstances does a will need to be certified? Such as, for example, if you were to write your own will or use a will kit, under what circumstances is the will accepted?
A will, look, I'll tell you how I work with wills. I don't give clients a certified copy of the will. It's not going to be necessary until they pass away. Okay, because when I'm doing a will, I have a copy of the will which I'll give to the clients, and they'll keep a copy, and they'll most likely put it in with all the important documents, and I keep the original in my safe, fireproof safe. Okay, why don't I give them a certified copy? Because nobody asks for a certified copy of a will whilst you're still alive. It's a confidential document. It should not be used in that particular manner. Where certified wills come into play would be once probate is granted. Okay, so once probate is granted, then the grant of probate attaches a copy of that will. That document can be certified and used by the executor for estate administration. Does that make sense, Greg?
I think so. I just recall that my father had difficulty in when he was executor of my mother's estate.
In getting a copy of the will or a certified copy?
Well, I don't remember the details, but I remember.
Certified copy, look, I can certify copies. That's not a problem. What's the use for that certified copy is more the question. Yeah, like, look, I wouldn't worry about that, Greg. I don't think that that's an issue anymore. It's more that if you need a certified copy, you can get that from your solicitor. That's just part of the service that we offer to clients. I always give a certified copy of enduring powers of attorney to my clients, because then they can use that. The banks, for instance, will ask for each and every page of enduring powers of attorney to be certified. So I'm aware of that. So we make sure we sign each copy so that they can be used by clients. Okay, David.
I have. Are you okay, Greg?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I suspect that Greg when he said certified, he also said will kit. So was it more a question of how does this piece of paper become an official certified document?
I think so. You know, I'm not sure of the circumstance that I'm referring to with my father, but certainly the document wouldn't have been prepared by a solicitor. It would have been prepared, if you like, in-house, and therefore presumably need some weight to indicate that should be used for probate. That's my guess.
I see. Sorry, apologies, Greg. I misunderstood the question. So if you have done a will on your own at home, right? So you've gone online and you've looked at some precedents and you've decided to do a will all by yourself. Obviously you have to have 2 witnesses to your will. That's the most important thing. And those witnesses must see you sign that will. They have to be in front of you. They have to be over the age of 18, and they must obviously be people that can see that you were lucid at the time that you signed the will. Because if for instance, one of the grounds that I often get is if the person did not have capacity at the time that they signed the will. Okay, that's often a question that I get. That's one of the things I look at if I want to challenge a will. Yeah, did this person have capacity? And my policy in my office is if a person comes into my office and asks to do a will, and they're over the age of 70, I get them. I send off a letter to their treating doctor, and I go through what is called a testamentary capacity assessment, okay, which is an assessment process whereby I want to make sure that the person that I'm speaking to understands what they're doing, why they're doing, and you know, basically is a person that has got capacity. So to go back to the question, you know, to ensure that your home drawn will is valid, you want to make sure that there's going to be no grounds that anyone can challenge you for not having capacity at the time that you drew the will. I'm not even going to make any comments about, you know, whether the will is clear enough in order to be implemented. So leave all of those factual details aside, but at least if you had if you have got no questions about capacity being a factor, and provided you had 2 witnesses who are over the age of 18 who are present in front of you and can attest that you were lucid and you signed the document in front of them, then you're doing pretty good. Okay, so that becomes the one original will. You can keep a copy of that, and I would say the executors should get a copy of the will, but the original should always be kept in a safe place.
We might just take David and Viv's 2 questions, and I think Anuja would then like a break with her voice.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so should there be 2 witnesses not be should the 2 witnesses not be beneficiaries? No, there's not a problem about the witnesses being beneficiaries. There should really be just 2. As a guiding principle, I would prefer that they would not be beneficiaries, because you don't have the question of duress, okay, and undue pressure that can come if the beneficiaries happen to be the witnesses as well, okay. So I think ideally it would be, I think I'm just looking at all this information about state trustees. I leave that all to you. I hope I haven't opened up a Pandora's box there, but I was not here and I did not say anything wrong. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But what else is there? Okay to leave a will with the solicitor, but if no one knows who the solicitor is, or if the executor is unaware of the death, how can I say or be confident my will be actioned as I want? Well, you need to give a copy of your will to your executor. You must be in conversations with your executor. You're not going to just appoint an executor without asking them. It's such an onerous duty. It's such an onerous job that you're not going to appoint an executor unless you've said to the executor, hey, you know, are you happy to act as my executor? And obviously what follows from there is that you'll be saying to them that, look, my copy of my will is here. This is where I keep all my important documentation. And when I give my clients a copy of their will, it has a front, it's in an envelope, which says the original will is kept with Anuja Baker Legal Services of this address. Okay, and I tell my clients to seal that envelope. It's a copy, remember, the original is in the safe with me, but the copy is then also sealed and put in a folder with the important documents. So, but it's just about open communication with your executor. Your executor must know where your important documents are, and yeah, okay. I found out I was the executor of a friend's will on the day of a funeral. Wow, good luck, Trish. A bit rough, I'd say, but I'm sure you'll do the right thing by your friend. And remember, you survived. Good, good. Yeah, so I would say, please don't do that to people. If you're going to appoint anyone as executors, do speak to them. And do be in communication with them, so that they know exactly what to expect, and not expect what Trish had to expect on the day of the funeral. Hi, Viv.
Hi, Anuja. Thanks again. I was in a situation where I was executor to a will that had been made about 40 years ago. The solicitor had retired and could have even had died maybe in that time. I had no way of knowing where the will was. I had a copy, but it wasn't a certified copy. So 2 questions. Would it have helped if I held a certified copy if I couldn't find the original? And the second question, how do you track down a will in that situation?
Maybe a certified copy. That's a good point. A certified copy may have helped, but it's still a copy. The point is that it's still a copy, and the probate office is simply going to ask you the first question: where is the original of this will? Yep. And so you will have to find out about it. Having said that, you know, you can get probate on a copy if you have, and provided, I mean, I've done this as well in the past. I've had I've been able to get probate on a copy, provided we can prove to the court that it hasn't been intentionally destroyed by the will maker. So there's quite a few regulations about it. There's quite a bit of case law, so I won't even go there, but definitely that can be done. But let's not do that. Yeah, that's the guiding principle. And how do you find the original will? Well, you can do that through the Law Institute of Victoria as well, because they will have details of where a practitioner has the practitioner when they have closed offices, who has taken over. And often what will happen is that they will leave details with the Law Institute of Victoria, because we are all registered members of the Law Institute of Victoria. So, you know, when I cease practice, I have to advise the Legal Services Board, and I have to have a succession plan myself of what's going to happen within my business and who's, you know, so basically the Legal Services Board and the Law Institute of Victoria would be the places where you would check to see where your practitioner has gone.
Okay, thanks. I wish I'd known that at the time. I did in fact find that another solicitor had it, but it took me about a week of research online and chasing around to eventually get there. But yeah, that's useful to know if it happens again. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, I'll answer this last one. So maybe don't put your executor in writing in the will until your nominee has read and understood and accepted the duties. Don't put your executor in writing in the will. Well, you have to, until your nominee has read and understood and accepted the duties. Are we, Liz, are we talking about, you're talking about a will? Well, in a will, you have to put down the name of the executor, and you have to put down the name of the alternative executor. There is no doubts about it, okay? But what I'm talking about is open communication with your executor, because the executor must understand what their role is, and when and only if they are happy to accept that role as an executor, will you nominate them in your will as an executor. Okay.
Thanks very much, Anuja. You've covered a wide range of territories there. I'll just take this one opportunity. I hope she's not listening, but the house that my wife and I live in is in my name. She keeps threatening to throw me out. Has she got a legal stand, being able to throw me out of my own house?
Absolutely.
Yeah. She can't. I mean, look, she has an equitable interest in the land, but I think, Peter, if you want, yeah, I would, yeah, I'd look after your wife. Yeah. How long have you been married?
56 years.
Yep. Yeah, she's got the rights.
Look, but thank you very much. I think Peter Carpenter raised an interesting thing there about technology and that nowadays. And, you know, people like Mark Zuckerberg bringing in Facebook have created a whole new world for we oldies. That didn't exist. My grandparents made out a simple will and there was no problems with anything like that. But look, thanks very much. I'm sure everyone's learned a lot. If they had any questions, I hope you've answered them correctly. My normal practice would be to give you a bottle of Grange Hermitage, but seeing that we're not together, I'll leave that up to David to thank you on behalf of the members. But look, thanks very much for giving up your time. You've done a great job. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for having me on this very cold evening. But if you have any questions, David will have my details. You can always give me a call. I'm here in Bentleigh, and yeah, happy to help out if you've got any questions. Everyone, have a good evening.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Anuja. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy your dinner.
I will.
Now,
see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye. It's 8:10. We'll break till 8:15, just so you can talk amongst yourselves, go and have a cup of coffee, do whatever you need to do for 5 minutes, and we'll see you back at 8:15, where the President will have had a cup of coffee and his voice will be in fine form to give his report from your break. And I'll pass it over to you, David, for the President's report.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Well, the President's report is going to be fairly brief, as it has been in these COVID times. I organised a speaker for tonight. Hope that counts. The big thing that's been going on, in fact, we've got Greg in who's going to come and talk to us about that in a little more detail, is that we're in the process of switching off Yammer, which will be at the end of this month, and migrating to Google Spaces. So it actually looks as though most of the people who are active on Yammer have already started to use Google Spaces extensively, which is good. And Greg will be here in a few minutes to help out with any problems that you may be having. The other one I've got a note here, there's going to be a power outage at the club. And I made this note a week ago and I've forgotten exactly when it is. So excuse me a moment while I look that up. I probably didn't put in there, did I? Forgive me. Oh, I can't find it now. The what's it called? United Energy are doing some works on the club.
If I remember correctly, David, it's on next Sunday.
Thank you. This coming Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Coming Sunday, there's going to be could be a power outage at the club. So the safe policy is to just not go there. There are no SIGs anyhow, so it would really only apply to people who may be casually dropping at the club. Which is mainly the microcontroller people, and I have actually emailed them separately and as a bunch anyhow. So that's it really. The other thing is that at the moment, if you intend to physically visit the club during business hours, I strongly recommend that you phone ahead just to make sure, because there've been a couple of glitches about volunteers. Marlin has had a couple of issues with sick children and worked from home. So don't just drive down all the way down from Croydon or Wantirna or what have you and expect the doors to be open at the moment during the week. And really, basically, that's it for me, I'm afraid. Not much else to say. So back to you, Peter.
Okay, thanks very much, David. Well, that I allowed a bit longer for you, but that'll give Greg a bit more time if he's got lots of questions to answer. So, Greg, we'll pass it over to you to our new system.
Okay, can I have screen sharing? Do I need to ask you to do that? No, I don't.
No, you do that.
Okay.
You go.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. I will just run through a quick slideshow, and then I'll go back to my own version of Spaces, and then we can go through step by step what you may or may not have to do to get there. But just to give you a little taste, this is what it looks like. This is Google Spaces. It looks a lot like Yammer, but it very much has a lot of idiosyncrasies that are not like Yammer. Now, if I can just bring up slides. And run the slideshow. Why is that not working? Here we go. Didn't load. Rightio. So we're going to use Google Spaces, and we're not going to use Yammer. As David said, end of this month, Yammer's gone. The reasons we have to change is not something I want to get into, because that's a different topic altogether. This is simply how to use it. Now I can just read that out, but you can read it yourself as well. The main point of interest here is that the MelbPC user group has given everybody in the club a legitimate free copy of Google Workspace. We all have it, even if a lot of us don't use it. It is called Google Workspace for Non-Profits, and it is not as extensive as the corporate versions. There are some limitations, and we've discovered that even in Spaces there are some limitations, and there's very little we can do about that. But Google are very generous; they give it to us for nothing. So Spaces is very similar to Yammer, but it's also a subset of Google Chat. Google Chat is more akin to Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or whatever, and Spaces is an extension of that. And the other thing we've discovered is we're using a very, very early version of Spaces. Google have promised a lot of development in the next year, and all we can do is sit back and wait for it to come. But the very best thing about Spaces, it's free. It's free for us to use. It's free for the club. There is no maintenance that needs to be done. There are no servers that need to be maintained. Everything's done by Google. All we have to do is use it, which is a very good thing. Now, how do we get to Spaces? And I'll show you this in a moment on my own desktop, but it's quite straightforward up to a point. We all have Google accounts, but a lot of us are just using Outlook or Thunderbird, and you never actually go to Gmail. But to get into Spaces, you need to have your Google account active in your browser. So the simplest way to do it, and the most foolproof way to do it, is to go to a web page, a blank web page, type in Gmail, and then the search will come up, and then find Gmail login and get in there and put in your MelbPC user group email address as your username, and your password is your password that you're using already. And then you'll get a page that looks just like that. And on the left, with my very well designed red arrow, you'll see the word Spaces. Click on that and you're in Spaces. Now, the problem with that is it's also a complex system for some. You can toggle between your mail, your chat, your Spaces, and your Meet all on one page. And if you look on the top right, there is a little 9-dot menu, and that gives you all the other Google Workspace resources that are provided to you by Google as a free account. And there's the 9-dot menu up there. Now, if you actually click on that 9-dot menu, you will find a menu, another menu pop up that looks like that, and you click on Chat. Now, I have to keep saying over and over and over again, Spaces is Chat. It's just a part of Chat. So whenever you want to do a search on Google to find out how to do something and there's no one around to help, quite often you have to do the search on Chat rather than Spaces. If you put in Spaces, you might not get an answer, or you might get an answer from a product called Spaces that was around 10 years ago that no longer exists. So it's Google Chat. Now, if you click on Chat there, then you get a full page chat that looks like Yammer. And for most people, this is the best way to go. Once you've got that up on the screen, just bookmark it. And then you don't have to open Gmail next time. You just go straight to that page. And then use the system as it's laid out. Now, in Yammer, down the left-hand side, you have communities that you've joined. Well, it's exactly the same here. In Spaces, you have spaces you have joined. And of course, this is my own personal Spaces account. I'm in every space. When we join new people up, you'll only have the top 3: all company, help with Google Spaces, and list of clubs spaces. And the reason for that is we don't want to, when we first started using Spaces, we put everybody in everything. But for instance, there's only a very small percentage of our members want to be in the Linux space. Home-built PCs, you know, they're spaces that only a handful of the members really want. So we had to look at a way of getting away from just putting everybody in everything. And then we came up with the list of club spaces. Now, I will demonstrate list of club spaces in a minute with a real-time visit to my own spaces. Now, there's a few things you need to know about spaces. And it's like Yammer, but it's not like Yammer. So a space is the same as a community in Yammer. The next thing you're going to find out is that it will start notifying you It will send you emails. It will pop up messages windows. It will annoy a lot of people. Now, there's nothing we can do about that. There's nothing in Spaces where we can create a default that says, do not annoy people. But if you go back here to this cog at the top right, on this particular page, you will get a pop-up menu, and you can then simply turn off all your notifications. And again, I'll show you that in a moment from my own account. So the next thing is Spaces is upside down compared to Yammer. The new messages go to the bottom of the window, not the top. And it works more like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. The way it presents data is it's the same. New stuff goes to the bottom, but it doesn't go all the way to the bottom if you've got unread messages. It goes to the first unread message toward the bottom. And again, we can have a little look at that in a moment. Now, if you're typing in a message as a reply to someone, or you want to create your own message and you press enter because you think you're going to get a new line to make it neat and to make it easier to read, you'll find the moment you press enter, you've posted the message. It's a habit that we all, when we first started using Spaces, we all did that. And then we discovered what you use is shift enter to put in a new line. And you just have to get used to not pressing enter and pressing shift enter, and there's no way around that. But if you do press enter and you post a message and you've only half written it, it's quite simple to hover your mouse over a message and up will pop a new little menu to the right up there with my brilliantly hand-drawn arrow, and you'll see the little pencil icon come up. You click on that and then you can edit your message or delete it or whatever you want to do. Now, a lot of people have said, well, how do I know when I've got new messages and what are the new messages? Because the layout is different to Yammer. So if you look on the left, you'll see Smart TVs and the Internet of Things is bolded and it has a red dot next to it. Now, that indicates, and at the top of that column, you'll see the word Spaces with a 1 after it. That means there's one space with a new message. And then obviously it's Smart TVs and Internet of Things. And then you'll see next to David's name here is a blue dot. A blue dot signifies an unread message, as does the line across the page just above that message with the word unread in blue. So it becomes fairly obvious that when you go into that space, it'll plonk you into the point where you have to start reading new, well, you don't have to, where you should start reading new.
Sending it from Hotmail to you. See if that works.
Yeah. So that's the end of my little slideshow. We understand that Spaces is rough and ready. It really is rough and ready. It's a very early product, and won't it be wonderful when Spaces 2 comes around? But for the moment, it works okay. People are using it. There is a lot of activity now on Spaces. Everybody's got used to shift enter and reading messages, and people are learning all the time. Like I didn't really understand the blue dots thing until just a few days ago when a few of the users were discussing it on Spaces itself. And the last little thing is, yes, we have mobile apps. Now, the simplest one to use is Google Chat. So you can just install that on the phone, log into MelbPC user group, and on the bottom of that screen, you'll see an icon for Spaces, and that'll allow you to interact with Spaces on a mobile phone. Now, there is another one, and it's the Gmail app itself. And sometimes it defaults and sometimes you've got to go into settings, but you can add chat to Gmail, and again the same thing will happen. You'll have a Spaces icon on the bottom of the app, which will allow you to go into Spaces. Now the Gmail approach is more complex. The simple one is simply install Google Chat, and it's very simple. Then you just tap on Spaces and away you go. So I guess for some people, we have this wonderful thing, which some people will love and some people will hate. We actually have a unified portal for all the functions that are available in Google Workspace. From the mobile side, if you use the Gmail app and you add chat and spaces to that, you have a fairly good one app to rule them all. On a computer, if we go all the way back up here to the very first slide, this Gmail page is everything provided by Google for our members. So on the left, you can just toggle between mail, chat, spaces, meet, and via the 9-dot menu, you get this, which is only the first page of that goes on and on and on, with all the bits and pieces that are provided for free as part of our membership. It's a slight extension on what you get for free with any Gmail account. We do get 30 gigs of online storage and a few other things which we don't need to go into now. I will now get out of this and get rid of that. And this is my own personal chat page. So I think about now, can I bring up hide side panel, open side panel? No, that's not going to work. No, I can't. I have to leave screen sharing to read your questions. So I'll quickly go through this and then go back to where I can answer questions. So this is Spaces. It's running. There are people using it. I don't want to put people's messages up on the screen for everybody to read because that's probably, well, I guess it is a public thing. So it doesn't matter that much, but I'm going to click on Marketplace. It's telling me that there's only one message unread today, and David Simpson has found a bargain on Reboot It for a second-hand Dell laptop. And I know it's a new message because it's got the blue dot and it's under the line that says unread. Now, if I go into chit chat, there will be 50 messages which started unread. And remember, we scroll down, not up. So as you can see, I've got a lot of, I've been out all afternoon. So I have a lot of messages there I haven't read. They've all got that little blue dot on them, and I can just scroll past and ignore them if I want to. All right, so I am now going to exit screen. Oh, well, maybe I've got, don't think there's anything else. Oh, just a brief demonstration, if I may. This is my inbox for my Gmail. I can switch to chat. And these are people I've been chatting with online, and I can select a message. Dennis won't mind if I, oh, maybe you will. I better not do that. Or I can switch to Spaces, and I can do the whole thing from one interface. And again, I can just go up to here, blah, blah, blah. And if you press page down, you go on to all the Google things that you can play with. So this is the one interface to rule them all. Or I can just go up, I'll close. Someone's ringing me, don't ring me. Sorry, I had to turn off the phone. From this particular interface here, I can just go to there, to chat, open up chat. Again, Spaces is part of chat. You can move this up and down to give more room to Spaces or less room to chat and vice versa. I have Meet down the bottom, which I never use, so I've got that minimized to the least amount of real estate I can leave there. I can't get rid of it completely. So that's how you get into chat, and that's a quick rundown of how you can use it. I'm trying to think where I can get in test. Is test a good place? No. Oh, sorry. List of club spaces. I did mean to mention that. This, when it finally loads, I've been busy putting people. This is the list of club spaces. Now, what does it mean? Each one has a heading, so we have technology news or travel. If you want to join technology news, you simply click on the blue link. It will take you to technology news and you've joined the group. So it's very straightforward. It's a help yourself system. It's not as perhaps intuitive as Yammer, but Spaces is not Yammer. This is the way we have to do it for the time being. There is a discover new spaces function in Spaces, but it only finds spaces you're already in, so it is effectively useless. The only way to find spaces is in this group list of club spaces, and there they all are as they stand at the moment. I would expect over time that the individual SIGs might put spaces of their own in there or ask us to do it for them. All right. Now, one last thing is, we'll go back to Marketplace. There's very little in there. If you want to reply to a message, so you click on reply. Not terribly difficult to work that one out. But if you want to start a new thread, you go out of that and down to the bottom here where it says new thread in Marketplace. So I'll just put test thread in here and press go. And now you'll see that David's message has got a box around it, and all replies will stay within that box. And now there's a new box around the new message I just put in, and that's a new thread, which could be on any topic you want. And again, all the replies to that will stay within its own little box there. And it's got a blue dot. It's a new message, ta-da, because I just did it. Okay, now I will stop screen sharing and I'll open up the chat window and ready to take any questions.
Maybe the same again, Greg, if people raise their hand icon.
I think, Greg, you've been remarkably clear and there are no questions. So now everyone knows everything there is to know about spaces.
Yes, that would be good.
John Thompson's waving his physical hand.
I just want you showed us how to join a group. How do you leave a group?
Yes, that's a very good question. And unfortunately, I can't play with my own spaces and talk to you at the same time, which makes it a bit hard. But if you're in a group and you want to get out of it, at the top of these, just enter the group, and at the top of the page, you'll see the name of the group with a little pull-down menu, a little arrow. If you click on that, one of the options, and there's about 10 different options in that pull-down menu, but one of them is leave the group. Okay.
You can also right-click it on the list on the left-hand side of the page.
Ah, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I used. I tidied up my whole list that way, so I haven't got all.
Yeah, I just learned something myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah, well, I learned something from you. Don't you worry. Little blue dots.
Greg,
yes.
Greg, would it be possible to get your presentation available for downloading?
Yes, I've actually shared it online, and it's up. Someone else can put it up. That yes, it can be. I've also written a how-to document which I continually update, and I can share that. Someone can put it on the main PC User Group webpage. Yeah. It's shared. It's shared with the security that anybody who has a MelbPC User Group email address can read it. But if you gave it to one of your friends, they wouldn't be able to open it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we need that. We need that. That's good. Thank you. We need it.
Okay.
The link to that document is already on the website.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Rob. I'd like to sort of interject a little bit there. Greg sort of bypassed the 9 dots menu very quickly, but I've found that the other applications available in Google, the docs and the spreadsheets and what have you, for every day, if you're not a power user, they are perfectly adequate for writing a letter to Aunt Mabel or whatever it is you're going to do. And in fact, I'm about to start producing a fairly sophisticated document just using Google's Docs, an extended training course in microcontrollers. So they're quite powerful. They're not up to full Microsoft Office Professional Edition or what have you, but unless you're, as I said, unless you're a power user, go for it. You can, and you can get a lot of plugins for them too. So I like using style sheets in a word processor. The Docs, Google Docs thing comes with some fixed styles, but there are plugins that you can get for doing things like that as well. So If you
Yeah,
find it a little missing, one of the things I like to have my markup, my paragraph characters and spaces and stuff showing in the draft. That's not part of the function, but I found a plugin. You just say search plugins and you're going to find it. So
Yeah.
it's really good. It's perfectly adequate for home use.
I helped someone set up a Google Docs page to do university type research papers. And the question came up is that it has to be in the Australian reference format.
Yep.
And it turned out all you had to do was go to the Monash University, and there was the plugin already for you to go. And
there you go. Yeah.
Correct
Got
format.
questions for you, Greg. So, Stuart, off you go.
Hello. You're muted, Stuart.
Unmute, Stuart.
Very fine.
Sorry, the space bar normally unmutes me, but it didn't this time. Greg, thank you very much for all the work you're putting into spaces, because I think it's going to shape up very well as a competitor to Yammer. And of course, Yammer is going up to that big software house in the sky somewhere soon. As far as we're concerned, anyway. How does a new member actually join spaces? Because new members don't seem to be already added to it. So how do they actually get on board?
We're having a debate at the moment. Should we simply add all 1,300 members of the MelbPC user group into all company? And we can do that. The question is, will the members be happy if we do that? Because what will happen is they'll start getting email messages and pop-ups on their screen saying you got new messages in all company or whatever, and they won't even know what it's about because they haven't put their hand up to join spaces. If you think about it, with 1,300 members of the club, there's only maybe 120 people ever use Yammer, which means all the rest of them don't use Yammer. Should we force them all into spaces or simply let them ask? And yes, we need a procedure where if anybody joins the club as a new member, then when they're joined up, they need to be told they have to ask at the moment. There's one side that says, if you don't shove everybody into spaces, they'll never know about it. And then the other side says, if you do that, you're going to annoy a lot of members and they might just not renew their memberships and go away. So I have not resolved that debate. We've been talking about it for the last week, trying to decide, should we or shouldn't we do that? At the moment, it's status quo. We are not doing that. We are only adding people who ask. So at the moment, people are asking on Yammer, and then myself and Dennis Parsons are adding them to the three groups that you need to get started. I've had a few emails from members who have just simply looked up my name through the MelbPC user group, and they've just emailed me directly. And they are people who don't use Yammer, but they wanted to be in spaces, and I didn't actually think there would be anyone like that. But they have emailed me and I've joined them up. That's not a problem. I don't mind doing that. In fact, if Stuart or someone wants to put my email address on the main web page next to spaces, people can just email me and ask if they want. And the other thing is, a couple of people have actually just rung the office and said, hey, I want to be in spaces. And the office has rung me and said, this is the email address, would you please put them in? And I'm like, that's no problem, I'll do that. So I have done that as well. I guess the email approach is the best because it's easy. Then I can just sit down and do 10 at a time as they come in. But at the moment, that's the way it works. I wish it was simple like Yammer was, that everybody is automatically a member whether they want to be or not. We can emulate that, but with the real risk of annoying people.
Harry, your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've opened up on my other computer while you've been talking, Spaces, using my MelbPC account, but I don't see any. It's just blank.
Yes, that's
So
because
I haven't connected it somehow or other.
no, it's not. You can't do it.
Oh.
Each person who wants to join has to ask to join, and then I have to go in and put your address into the system to make it work.
Okay. Would you be so kind?
I need your. No, don't tell me online, but
okay.
I'll look you up later and add you.
Thank you very much.
But this is a perfect example of the problems we have with this. This is how people are going to join.
You say I'm an example of your problems.
You're an example of what is new to join spaces. Somehow someone's got to tell me, or Dennis Parsons, or Roger Brown, I would like to join, please.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay.
Hi, your question.
Oh, hi. Just thought I'd add a comment to David's thing about it being sort of, the Google Docs and all sort of thing being vaguely amateur. I'll point out that actually Monash University does everything on Google.
Yes.
No. So it's not a minor thing. But just as in a sense, a throwaway comment from my own experience, I run a Mac, and I keep a lot of stuff on iCloud. I have done for quite a long time. And that includes, of course, or has included, of course, my stuff from Monash. And Monash would like everything to be under Google Drive. So I thought, well, I better do the right thing. So I ran the Google Drive setup, which is actually very good. It basically goes in, if anybody is a Mac person, in your Finder, it actually turns up as one tab in your Finder, basically. So you can just drag and drop across between things. I did a wonderful drag and drop of should we say a fairly large number of gigabytes, and it worked as far as I could see. A day or two later, I went into one folder. I don't know what this is the only one I found a problem, but it actually, they were all supposed to be PDFs, and they all turned out to be, according to Google, didn't recognize them, so it decided they were exes. So I actually had to eliminate that folder and redo it again. It now works, but there are a few hiccups still in the system, I'd say. But otherwise, it's pretty impressive. It's actually a very good workspace in general.
Yvonne, we might make you the last question for Greg.
John Finnegan. Hello.
You're muted, Yvonne.
Sorry about that. I just have a question or two. Can you please explain the options under the active button and whether we need to make ourselves inactive before we leave spaces?
No. I'm trying to think. There is no way of there's no equivalent of an out of office notification. When you're logged in and using it, it shows that you're there. If you don't do anything for a while, it lists you as not there. So no, you don't have to do anything. Right. Just click the tab off and go away, and it won't be a problem.
Okay.
I think that answers your question. I hope so.
Hello.
And I tried. I can get on my PC onto Spaces, but I tried it on my iPad, which is my device of choice, and it's not actually. I wasn't able to get in properly. So, do I need to have the mobile app for my iPad, or
on the iPad? If you install Google Chat, that will make life very simple then, because when you open that app, there's a toolbar along the bottom, and the middle one is Spaces. You just tap on it and then you're in. It's the same on an Android tablet or a phone.
I'll have a look at that.
Okay. And sorry, while you're there, when you went
in. Thank you very much. Sorry,
Yeah, the connection's a bit slow, I think.
I lost you. I
yeah.
lost you.
When you're in Spaces, have you got all the spaces on the left-hand column, or is it blank? I can't remember whether I've added.
No, I've chosen the ones I want.
Okay,
so
terrific.
I've just got the ones I want. Got about half a dozen selected.
Yep. Okay, that's good. Then all you need on your iPad, Google Chat app.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Greg. Took a bit more than the 15 minutes, but I think you've covered it. I noticed there were 70 people online when you were talking, so probably some of them are already on Spaces, but you might have about 60 emails tomorrow with people wanting to get on. So good luck.
The last thing I'll say is we've already got, as of this morning, I haven't looked this afternoon, there were 115 people who've joined up. So that's pretty good.
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 Okay, thanks very much. So now it's a bit late, but I'll introduce Harry Lewis, the iHelp man, and if you've got any questions, the same deal, raise your hand. If not, Harry might give us a few little hints. Over to you, Harry.
Thank you, Peter. Before I look to questions, I just want to put this in a framework because there's a particular piece of advice I want to give to members. So I hope to share my screen. Right. So we've just been hearing about Spaces from Greg. Here's the big picture for the transition from Microsoft to Google. As far as we're concerned, the transition for email is effectively complete. There's still a trickle of members coming in who haven't moved their email over yet. Mostly they're members who aren't making primary use of their MelbPC address. The next one is the one where we use our MelbPC email address to log in, usually for renewing our membership, but also for the members-only areas of the website. And I want to come back to that in a moment. I won't say anything more about Spaces because that's already been dealt with. The other major service in Microsoft where members have an investment is the OneDrive, and that's where the members are needing to move their data somewhere else. As has been mentioned, there is a Google Drive, which you've all got. It may or may not have room for your data. You just need to check how much you're using. I want to come back to number 2, because there's a steady trickle of members who are having some trouble with this one. And apologies to those of you who've done it already. Mostly it's coming up when members start on the website to renew their membership. But I think it can happen when they click on the link in the renewal message. So where you want to get to is this page on the website. It has been restructured over the last few weeks or months, but where you see membership and payments, that's where you want to get to renew your membership. It's got your profile. The default is it comes up with your profile, the contact details. So how do you get there? Well, the normal way, where if you're starting on the website, is to go to where it says member login, and you click that, and all being well, you see a screen like this. There's a quick flash by of a WordPress login page, but you can scarcely do anything with it before it's flashed by. You should ignore it. And this tells you you're invited to log in to MelbPC Google Workspace. And that's where you want to be. You enter your email address here, you'll get prompted for your password. And once you've logged in, you're normally taken directly to your profile, to your dashboard. If that's presenting any problems, a foolproof way of getting there is to start in a browser, logging into your MelbPC Gmail. Whether you're normally using that for Gmail or not, as Greg mentioned, many people are using Thunderbird or Outlook and even stranger email programs. That's their right and their business, but other Google services, as Greg was hinting, you need to get here. the main point of this is, once you've logged into this using your MelbPC identity, top right will tell you in the right place, by the way, because you can see the two logos here, the old logo and the new one. And next to it is your initial, probably, unless you've already provided Google with a beautiful portrait. That's your avatar. Then what you need to do, this is the foolproof method, is to go to the top of the screen and write in melbpc.org.au there, which is the URL of the web page, and then press enter. And now you will almost certainly get here. And the subtle difference here is that you're seeing member dashboard where it said member login. As long as you're seeing member dashboard, it's telling you you are already logged in as you, because you can only see your own dashboard, and that's what you get to when you click it. So that's the end of the little pep talk I wanted to give. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, I hope. Stop share, there it is, right. Happy to answer questions. Unfortunately, in any 1 month, 8.5% of our members max log in to renew. And so we're going to be seeing members coming through later in the year. But if you happen to be in the meeting and haven't yet renewed, or indeed you want to do anything else on the website that involves your membership, I'll offer that tip to you, because you know I think we're having the order of 1 member a day approach. I help with the problem on that. So that's my input, awaiting your input and questions, if any, friends. John Finnegan, you're muted. John Finnegan, if you want to talk to us, we have to hear you. You're muted. Now you're not muted. Oh, now you are. Now you're not.
Oh, good. Okay.
All right.
Not again. Today's news, every day we hear invasions, intrusions of all kinds. Mine occurred 2 days ago when I was doing some research on, of all things, Wikipedia. And after having read the relevant article, moved down to section at the bottom, including references to further sources for further information about the article I had read. The first one was a New York Times article, and when I clicked on that, I found that I was not given access to it because I didn't have a subscription. So I tried the second one, and it was further information about the article. When I clicked on it, almost instantly, I lost the start button, the taskbar, the menu bar, the scroll bar, and instead, in the center of the screen, looking like a small number of playing cards, with the front one the most visible, was a message from Microsoft Security. It informed me that my computer, with which I've never had any such trouble for 30 years, was now locked by, of all things, Windows Defender, because it had been attacked by a Trojan, another one of these intrusions. So I tried, of course, I didn't have any other option to dismiss it like one would normally do, on the suspicion, which were my feelings, that this might have been some scam which would eventually ending in asking me to give them money for something. But I was over a barrel. No start button, no taskbar, no menu or scroll bar. So I couldn't dismiss the so-called, as I've named them, playing cards in the centre, with the Microsoft security card, the foremost one. I tried the Xing, I tried everything. One of the cards behind it, so to speak, related to the antivirus. I have recently, 2 weeks ago, changed from Avast to Kaspersky, which might ring a few bells in a number of ways, but I have found it very impressive. But just slightly sticking over the top of the Microsoft card was the word Kaspersky. Now, as I said, I was over a barrel. I couldn't do anything but ring the telephone number on the Microsoft security card, so to speak. I found out I was talking to somebody in Canberra who told me that Defender had locked my computer because of this Trojan attack, and they would try to remove the Trojan if I would give this fellow control of and access to my laptop. So again, I'm over a barrel with this. And I said, yes, nothing untoward happened out of that. I could see the cursor moving around, doing things on the screen. But ultimately he got back to me and told me, rather interestingly, that Kaspersky was preventing him from removing the Trojan, word for word. So he said, these are the options you have. This is where the plot thickens. They were, number one, I could not take the option of being passed on to a company who would install a better antivirus, a VPN tracker, and other securities from a company which I subsequently learned was called the smartnetstore.com. Very important to get all those words, the first three, run together into one word, thesmartstore.com, because when I Googled just SmartNet after my conversation subsequently, wanting more information, I found 100 SmartNets, not anything to do with what I was talking. Thesmartnet.com. Okay, and of course there would be charges. They were of 3 levels, $399 for 1 month, $799, I think perhaps from memory, for 3 months, and then perhaps for people of our age, a more attractive one for seniors, where the premium level was offered to seniors at a 60% discount. The normal price being in the 1800s and offered for $799. Now, as I said, they told me if I chose the option of ignoring all that, then they would, Defender would unlock my laptop, but I would be vulnerable to the hackers and all the others who would be part of that Trojan, who could get information of all kinds from my emails and everything. So they were the options that I was given. And as I said, all ways of treating this as something to dismiss were completely removed. So I had to buy one, and I chose the one with the 60% discount. And I have subsequently found, since those 2 days ago, that it seems to be a very good product. But my subsequent thinking, and I put this to you for a response, was, okay, in these days with invasions and intrusions, as I said, of all kinds, and COVID being one of them, economies and everything regarding money have been compromised, and people, I would expect, are looking for all kinds of ways of, you know, the mantra, there must be more money. There must be more money. So thinking along those lines, I began to wonder how this occurred to me. As I said, it was Wikipedia, and the references, one would think, you know, not loaded with threats, but apparently the one that I clicked on was because of what happened subsequently. But then I began to wonder what Kaspersky, that's been sending me messages to pay for their VPN, and the antivirus I had, which I drop kicked instead and took Kaspersky, was Avast, and they were doing the usual badgering stuff. Both of them, as I said, with the mantra, singing the mantra from their song sheets, there must be more money. So, you know, I wonder, have I been set up in a way that I could not possibly escape, given my 30-year experience with computers? And can I repeat again, I have never had this happen to me before. Your response?
If that's addressed to me, and I'd rather be interested to hear what other people say, on the face of it, where you started was a completely respectable source. But I have two questions in my mind about that. One is, what level, I mean, any number of naughty people are simulating valid websites in order to get at us. And it's conceivable to me that your computer may already have been infected at the point where you loaded that page. The other thing is, that was a link to a website, wasn't it, John?
Yes, to Microsoft Security.
I would question that link. But let's take one step back, because let's say somebody gets to your situation. The first thing I would be doing, given, I mean, it's natural to use an onboard virus checker if you've got one and do a full scan. Some of the malware will disable onboard virus checkers. So the most Malwarebytes is quite good at operating in an already infected environment. And so in iHelp, we very commonly advise members to use that. It's free to use on a scan basis. You only need to subscribe if it's a real-time virus checker. But the other thing is you can use a bootable virus checker. As it happens, Kaspersky provides one of the most widely used ones, so that instead of booting Windows, which may already be infected, you actually boot typically a Linux system, but you boot from an external drive. And so it can inspect your Windows for you. Before you go down the track you went down, I can't tell you, I hope other people present may have some idea, exactly who was doing what in your story and how many of them were genuine and how many were not. But because we're working in a situation of extreme uncertainty as to what's gone wrong, we want to use tools that operate independently of any infection that might already be in our computer. So if anybody else finds themselves in a situation like that, by all means call iHelp, or if you've got another working computer that's not puzzling, get onto Yammer, as it will be then, Spaces, and talk to the security group there, because that's where the main chat room is in this club for issues like this. But if you have a computer that seems to be infected, almost the next thing to do, well, first thing to do is to take it offline, because you never know what it's doing. I don't think yours would be a case like this, but I believe botnets still exist, and we know that people are hacking computers in order to send email from them because they're clean. So taking a computer off the internet is quite a wise move, an insurance move, while you sort yourself out. If you can get through another means, a bootable malware checker, then that is a very important step to take to see what they can find. It seems to me most unlikely that your Trojan, if that's what it was, won't be in the lexicons of viruses.
That view is what you're going to buy this.
Harry, if you have a look at chats, Graham Neal's told us that it is a scam, or appears to be a scam.
Fair enough. I mean, so I'm not seeing, wait a minute. I've got to go up. I want to get rid of, I can't get rid of the participants list. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's interesting about Browser Guard, by the way, because I think most browsers either incorporate or can easily incorporate with an add-in a virus checker so that you can't use a link that's bad. Now what you're saying, you see, Graham Neal has said SmartNet Store may itself be a scam. And yes, I know, we know Kaspersky is Russian. This one comes round and round. As far as I know, the computer security community hasn't regarded Kaspersky as highly risky. I know the Americans came up with this because they regarded anything that was Russian as likely to be spying on us, but they have been a very well regarded provider of malware detectors. And if other people can correct me if they like, but I'm trying to remember the other one we use. I'll get it out of my cupboard in a moment while we're talking about something else. But some of the nastiest things work on our computers out of our sight, and they're good at hiding from virus checkers. And the other example is, I mentioned botnets. The idea there is that people can install programs on our computers. I'm not suggesting this has happened to John, by the way, it's a quite different story, to send spam. That's how spam comes from respectable sources that the spam police, who are highly paid by Google and Microsoft and so on, very sophisticated software, but your computer being innocent is a good one to send spam from, if only they can get into it. And they get a few million spams off it before the spam police cut it off because it's doing too much spam. And then they go and infect another computer. That will almost certainly disable an onboard virus checker. They're very clever. But if you boot from with another operating system from an external drive, chances are anything like that will be spotted. That's what I'm saying. It's just another precaution. But John, you've been very unfortunate there, I think. And I say, I can't say, and if anybody else in the room can say, on the basis of your narrative, how many of the people you spoke to were genuine and how many were actually representing themselves as Microsoft or whoever, because I've lost it now. If SmartNet Store Ecom is genuinely malware, or it's a fraud, in other words, it's a bit like the organizations, the software which will encrypt your data and ask for a ransom. If it's not genuine, you paid a ransom.
Right, I may have done, but since this has been installed, down on the taskbar, there's a telephone number with an area code 02 to call, and I'm quoting it now, 02 6100 4299. Now, subsequent to this experience, naturally, because I thoroughly believe in following up everything I can in life. It's the only way to find out more about what you're involved in, and also to improve how things are done. Follow up is essential. So I started following up with the SmartNet, and I eventually found out the name of the company is, as I told you, the SmartNet, all one word, .com. And I was told when I asked them, are you an American company? Because I was thinking, if I'm with Microsoft Security on this, they are passing me into the hands of someone connected to their company and doing the small bit to improve the American economy and its revenue and so on. And I thought there might be that kind of linkage. I was told, yes, it is an American company. It's been going for a short while, but it's not been operating for a long time, and it's looking for new customers. And it has them in Australia, but what I was told, if I can believe what I'm told, and these days one questions that a lot of the time, that's what I was told. A bit of background to this, I said for 30 years, I've had no such problem whatsoever. And I've used the free antivirus, I've used Microsoft Defender, and prior to Kaspersky, Avast, and recently Glary referred to me by MelbPC, and I regularly scan my laptop and clean trackers and everything. I do all the things that perhaps not everyone does. However, and even when I spoke to Telstra about how secure my internet service provider was in protecting me from people who want to exploit the connection. Oh, Telstra told me, Mr. Finnegan, your connection is very secure. We take our responsibilities very seriously. So you see, all of this made me think and feel, and my absence of any such previous experience, that everything was okay. And as long as I kept up my practice, then all of a sudden, out of Wikipedia, as far as I know, Harry may be right too, this thing came out of the blue. And my own thinking is I could have been set up by a combination of Microsoft Security and Kaspersky.
I think you're pulling a long bow there, because the main culprit in your story, in fact, is that link, isn't it?
Yes, but Windows Defender and the person I was talking to made sure that I could not avail them. I tried to shut down the laptop, right, and start again. I didn't disconnect anything, but I tried the shutting down. And yes, everything shut down, started up again. There was what I'm calling pack of cards in the center of the screen, with the front one being Microsoft Security, and at the bottom of it, the telephone number, which ended up in Canberra.
Well, what I'm going to recommend, John, because I don't think we can on air throw more light onto your particular story. All I was saying was, it seems to begin with your clicking a link.
Right.
Right, and that link didn't come from Microsoft and it didn't come from Kaspersky. You got it from what, as far as you knew in good faith, was a Wikipedia page. And remember that Wikipedia pages can be edited in real time, right? I'll tell you a family story, a very quick one. So one of my cousins was born in London, Ontario, when his parents, my uncle and aunt, were living there. And for his, I think it's 50th birthday, one of his children decided to get him listed as one of the most famous people born in London, Ontario. So they managed to go into Wikipedia, because you can do that, and edit the site for long enough to get a screen grab of his name in the list of people who've been born in London, Ontario. Because London, Ontario's city authorities have a pretty alert internet team, it didn't last more than minutes, I promise you. But Wikipedia, in that sense, can be a source of damage, because you and I can go in and edit a page, and it'll be up there until one of their monitors picks up something's gone wrong. As far as I know, again, subject to correction, there's no, it is a wiki. In other words, it's a bottom-up organization, Wikipedia, and it depends, they do have editors who monitor this sort of thing, but because it's so open, it's quite easy for people to go in and, particularly with a popular article, try and insert malicious links long enough to trap people. That's only a guess. I'm only saying that's one thing. I honestly think we ought to move on to something else now, but I strongly and warmly invite you to describe your experience, I would say now in Spaces, in the security section, and see what other people there, including many of our members who've got a lot more knowledge than I have of these things, make of it. Very interesting to you, I hope.
Yes, thank you, Harry. And I will add to my list of many other things not to click on, Wikipedia.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on anything that might or might not have been said?
Harry, can I just comment? At one stage, I thought John said that he hadn't been able to switch off his laptop. People may not be aware that if they hold down the power button, which they would normally do to switch on, to hold down the power button for about 20 seconds, they will hear a click and it will disconnect the battery from the laptop. And that's really the only effective way you can turn off a laptop in the circumstances that John had.
May I add that I did use that method of turning off the laptop, and it did turn off. The only thing was, when I powered it up again, there was the pack of cards with the Microsoft one foremost.
John, you may not have seen, David has now posted a link to a story about Wikipedia links another case, not your case, a Wikipedia link leading to a virus site. So I think, I haven't read it yet, I haven't had the time, of course, but I suspect it will be consistent with my remark that people can get in and edit Wikipedia.
I'll follow it up.
I think, John, when you repowered and the telephone number or pack of cards came back up, at that stage I would have pulled the battery out and taken the laptop around to the nearest reliable PC dealer that could help you.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah, that advice is easier to take with some laptops than others, John, as you well know, I suspect.
Mm-hmm. I do.
If it happens to be an Apple laptop, you can't do it. If it happens to be my Lenovo laptop, you're going to destroy half the little plastic clips that come apart when you try and take the lid off. But I do understand where you're coming from. But because laptops have a live battery, short of running the battery down to absolute zero, there's always power there. And the best way to disable it completely is, in fact, to remove its supply. Whereas if you've got a good old desktop, you just pull the plug and there's no power apart from the little battery that just keeps the BIOS in place and the clock. Look, anything else that isn't on security issues that anyone wants to raise?
Yeah, Harry, Paul Woolard.
Hello, Paul.
How you going?
I'm fine. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. Listen, I've been trying to get onto the videos of recent meetings, and I can't find anything on the website that gives me an in. Can you tell me? Can you tell me where I find it?
If I can't, I'm sure Rob can. Just a minute. I haven't been there not long ago. In fact, isn't the link in the mail outs as well? Come to think, that's the first place to look, isn't it? I think maybe what's happened here, Paul, is I'm not sure that the information is coming out on the monthly meeting mail outs as much as it used to. I think when I wanted to get in to look at something from that 2021 recently, I had to go quite a way back in time just to get the username and password, which is, you probably know already without needing it. But if I look, I won't do it now because I'll be wasting your time. But look at the website, because I think it's pretty easy to find, isn't it?
Harry, I do think
You go, Rob. You go.
I do think there is actually an issue from February onwards. We've had a staff member with an illness, and some of the duties in that respect haven't been altogether up to date. And that's something that we're trying to get sorted out in the next little while. So you may find that you're not finding the ones that you're looking for if they're in that group from February. So
I can't even find how to get to that area, let alone whether it's up to date.
Paul, on the main website, which as Rob knows a lot better than I do, has been restructured to some extent. There's a monthly meeting option at the top between SIGs and member login. On the right, there's a narrow short column on the right. That I think is really old, isn't it? But monthly meeting, monthly meeting links on the right-hand side of that page, which is just melbpc.org.au/monthly-meeting/. But that's what you get from the monthly meeting top menu item, right? Monthly meeting. On the right there's a column with past meeting notices and archive, which I think is the prior to 2020. But below that, there's another paragraph, monthly meeting videos can be accessed here. And that link is actually services.melbpc.org.au/videos. But you get it from that link, right?
Okay, thank you.
That's where you then get the sign in, and that's where you need the username and password that's in the mail outs, right?
So what's the username and password?
Who remembers it now? Go on, everybody. I have to look it up because I use it so rarely. Don't tell me, nobody who can hear us can't tell us off the top of their head. Go on.
I'm afraid I can't help you with that one. Paul, I'm still not sure that you're going to find the ones that you're looking for if they're in recent months.
Okay, well, don't worry about it. I'll chase it up later. Thank you, Harry.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'll email it to you. If anybody else can put it up, they're welcome. I don't want to take my time away finding what I found the other day, but I did go back in the monthly meeting notices, and the old style ones have it very clearly there, and it hasn't changed, right?
The latest video on there is August 21.
No, that's a separate issue, right? I think we haven't got Paul to that point, right? Because we haven't found the username and password. Have you got that? Whoever said that, I can't see.
Yeah, it's Brian Haywood.
Yes.
But I've just looked at that website. The latest video on there is August 21.
But did you need to log in to see that?
I did, yeah.
So what's the username and password?
Oh, I forget. It's already in there. I forget.
Okay, because I mean it's very insecure, isn't it? I mean it's just that we have to have one.
But don't worry about it, Harry. I'll check it out later. I just thought I'd take the opportunity while I was here. Thanks anyway.
Okay, right.
I think if you go back to the year before, you can find the username and password. Hasn't been published recently.
Yeah, and maybe it should be. Yes.
Harry, it's 9:30. I scheduled this to finish at 9, but we've run over a bit. We might close the meeting formally.
Yeah.
And, I presume you may hang around for a while and people can talk to you. But so we'll say good night. Our next meeting is on July the 6th. It's a Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So I'm not sure whether we'll be Zooming or physically meeting. But good night. Thank you everyone for their attendance, and we'll see you all next month.